There's some really terrific panelists I'm going to introduce right now, and then we'll get right into questions. First, I'd like to welcome Christopher Crow. Go ahead and join us up on the dais. Chris is he's a vice president of his local at NYU, and in that role, he has participated in collective bargaining negotiation during the Great Depression, which helping to secure a decent livelihood and favorable terms and conditions for the employment of over 1,400 members. He assists union members in disputes with NYU. He has served as a member of his union's statewide committee, advising the directors on issues related to their members, and has written numerous resolutions that have been adopted or are currently being considered for adoption with regard to financial practices of members of the university and upper management, and seeking the elimination of taxation of graduate tuition commission benefit. That's Christopher Crow. Welcome, Chris. Thank you. Jacobs is local. So many of you Austin residents may know her by day. She is an executive director at Community Capital, which is a not-for-profit that uses education and innovative financial tools to create opportunity for underserved communities in the Hudson Valley. They have provided loans to foster the creation of over 2,500 affordable homes. They make loans to small businesses. They have created the region's largest financial capacity training program, and they provide matching grants to people living in poverty to buy a home, start a business, or pursue an education. Please welcome Kim Jacobs. There you are in person. Karen and I met virtually earlier this week, so it's nice to meet you in person. Karen is the Community and Cultural Development Manager at Grayston Foundation. She's worked for Grayston for a number of years, starting in 1999 to 2004, and then went back in 2010 with a new role. And in her role, she has refined and evolved open hiring, making significant changes in the orientation of new employees, developed culturally appropriate trainings, and advocated for improved policies affecting employee rights. It by no means at all explains what the Grayston Foundation does, so you're going to get a chance to explain the Grayston Foundation. They're not just a bakery, although the bakery is a core part of it, and I look forward to people being able to learn more about that today. So we're going to get underway. I'm going to ask the first question, but be ready, because nobody else wants to ask the first question. Everybody wants to ask the last question when we run out of time. So to help everybody understand really where you're coming from and what brings you here to this table, and tie it into the film, I don't know if this was your first time seeing it, but as you see this film and you think about what you do each day, were there particular people in this film or experiences or perspectives that are really consistent and emblematic of what you're seeing every day, or that are really contrary to what you're experiencing? Anything that you can help us identify what you're doing and how accurate this seems to you?
I guess what resonated for me was just sometimes how little money it takes to give people their shot. There were so many examples in the film of how if dollars were spent in more productive and creative ways, that it could really create change and opportunity in people's lives, and instead we seem to consistently take the path of waiting until we need to do remediation of some sort, which is always less effective and much more expensive.
Well, I would say that when I first watched this actually a couple of weeks ago, and my reaction all during it as a unionist is, my God, these people need unions, to fight for them, to band together. I'm going to butcher a quote, but it was Frederick Douglass who said that power never conceded anything without a demand, and it never will. And oh my God, like these people, they need to demand more. Luckily, in my workplace, I work at New York University. We have issues with New York University, but not quite so much as a lot of the people pictured in this movie, because we have made our demands. And that was my big takeaway.
Watching the movie, how many people here ever seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show when they acted out on stage? There were so many times where I just sort of wanted to jump up and go, yeah, that's important. and give it that sort of treatment, which I thought could be kind of fascinating. But there were really two things that really struck me in the movie. The one is that everybody's definition of the American dream started out with work hard. And the lack of access to job, not just the lack of access or the lack of jobs, the exclusion, whether intentional or unintentional, of groups of people from jobs in the United States is shocking. And really thought-provoking on how we can start to fix it from that point. The other thing that, when they were talking to Jeffrey in Harlem, one of the things that they left out is the cradle to special ed thing that happens in public schools. Children, babies, coming into daycare at 6 weeks of age, obviously, their brains aren't developed. We've seen it happen so many times. A child will get pulled out of an early learning center or a daycare center and pushed into the public school system when they're not ready. And then from there, pushed into a special ed program that they're really not qualified for, but it's the only place that they see where they can fit them. And at that point, that child loses their chance of developing their brain. So those two things really stuck with me.
Thank you. And I will open it up right away. Okay, there you go. There's a question.
My question is really for Chris. Just as a lover of history, it's easy to look back and say that the American middle class has been founded on unions as much as anything else, which really seems to have declined in the last 30 or so years, and how could we go about reversing?
Well, that's a very good question. And if I knew the answer to that, I would probably be the president of the AFL-CIO. I think that unions obviously have to do a better job of organizing. I think that we have to demand that of our politicians. I mean, we have a number of, many of our states are the so-called right-to-work states. Which it's not right to work, it's right to work for less, it's right to starve. I think that the people in those states need to rise up against their state governments and say, no, this is not acceptable. It was very cool when we saw Reverend Barber there. I leaned over to my good friend Eric Garrity there, and I said to him, I've seen him live. He's great. I actually saw him in 2008, 2012 in Los Angeles. I was there for a union convention, and he came and he energized the troops. So we need more people like him to push for the greater union movement. Organizing, organize.
I will say, please raise your hand as I'm walking around because I just have a comment that I'll fill in. The last joke kind of bothered me because it was about if you don't make it to the next rung of the ladder and you're homeless, you can go live in your mom's basement on the pull-out couch. And that assumes that you're middle class and your parents have a basement and they have the welcome open arms to bring you home. And that is just not the case for so many people in our country who have the fewest opportunities here.
Hello. By watching this movie, I noticed a few times the movie was going back to the 90s when Bill Clinton was the president. And maybe that could give you the idea that he was responsible for this, which I do blame the Clinton administration for a lot of the problems that are happening right now. However, I do understand that this has been a process that started like on the Reagan years, that whatever the Republicans couldn't do in the government, the Democrats would enter and just do what the Republicans wouldn't be able to do in their terms. How do you see the political environment affecting the livelihoods of regular people? I would ask.
Yes.
No, that's fine.
Well, I think, the politics underlies all of it, that there are a lot of solutions available if we have the political will to make them happen. And you're right, there's plenty of blame to go around. Certainly, federal housing dollars were decimated during the Reagan years. During the Clinton years, we had welfare reform, which put lifetime limits on public assistance, which I heard some stories in the movie itself about people that had a very negative effect on. But it's just across the board, Washington's been in a terrible deadlock, and you say organize, I say vote. It's kind of the same thing. Kind of the same thing. But I don't think we always do a very good job of demanding what we want from our politicians. We listen a lot, right? We've had at least, I'm using the word debates lightly, to hear what they want to tell us, but I think it's equally incumbent on us to turn around and tell them what we want. We've gotten all kinds of information out front tonight on a number of issues, and really it's incumbent on all of us to take those actions. And as a not-for-profit organization that advocates for various things from time to time, my experience has been phone calls matter, letters matter, emails matter, that, they're all kind of doing this. See which way the wind blows, and you can be part of that wind. And so, I don't know who said, but to quote someone else is, we give the government we deserve. So if we're not happy with what's happening in Washington or in Albany or even in Ossining, it's because we did not make what we wanted known.
There's also the piece to it, and we heard a lot of people talking about it in this, and I hear it all the time from people. We want less government. We want government out of our houses. We don't want these government programs to be supporting social service. And I understand where they're coming from on that, because I see it from the other side in programs that don't necessarily work. They're not aligned. They don't complement each other. In many cases, they contradict each other. And I understand that frustration. So it's so interesting now to be thinking about politics, because I've never seen and I won't be specific because I'm a nonprofit and I can't, but the landscape and the number of people who have a solid opinion about something political, that at the very least is inspiring, that so many people are involved, regardless of which side you're on. But looking at it from the down ballot election, where so much of the policy work actually gets done. So not giving up after this election, whichever side you're on, but going to your legislators, your assembly people, your mayors, your city council people. Start your kids out, your Girl Scout leaders, start talking about the consequences of them voting in their schools, wherever it happens to be, because policies need to shift, realign, and actually start working. And then I think you'll see some people pulling back from we don't want these government things. I think what they really are feeling and are not articulating is we're tired of seeing our tax money failing at the job we're asking it to do.
And speaking of voting, tomorrow is the deadline to change your voter registration in New York State. So go to the Westchester Board of Elections if you've moved, if you need to change your party, if you have somebody who's a new voter in your family. They should go online tonight, print up the application, get it in the mail, get it to the Board of Elections by the 19th so you can vote on it.
You can actually do it online.
Great.
Yeah, you don't even just have to print it out. You can
Excellent.
register online.
Well, can I ask for a show of hands, how many people are registered to vote regularly? Okay, yay, that's good. Yeah.
What a
yeah.
self-selecting group we have
Yes.
here.
Yeah, all right, but here's my second question. Can I ask for a show of hands of people who go out on the street, who protest, who raise a little hell? All right, that's good, that's good. Because, yeah, great, because That's what, you said organize, I said organize, you said vote, of course.
I said march.
And yeah, march, yeah. You got to do all three. You got to do all three. You got to write letters. You got to show up. I think it was Woody Allen who said 90% of success in life is just showing up. That's how we're going to change our politics. That's how we're going to change our country.
People may be relieved to know that residents of the village of Ossining let their concerns be known very effectively. Questions?
I actually don't know the message, but I was close. Yeah. Watching this film made me realize like the paradox between like the we the people versus like the actual American dream. It's like not everybody is like in the same. Like it's different for everybody. Like it just made me realize that being home. I mean, I'm being home right now for like my parents. I feel like living out on my own. So, like, there's people far worse than you are, actually. Like, so it just put things into perspective for me that way. So, it's just
It's interesting to me when they said there was so talk of we the people, and yet the symbol of the American dream is a picket fence. You know, so there's something about us together and this is mine, stay out, that's compelling to think about.
If I could tell you a little story, in late 2010, I was lucky enough to travel around in Egypt a little bit. And 2 weeks later, there was a revolution. Okay? The whole time I was there, the one thought that kept going through my head was, oh my God, we're in the driest country in the world. There's one source of water, the Nile, and it's bad to drink, okay? I'm not rich, but we were relatively rich compared to the Egyptians. We were able to buy our way out of that and buy all the bottled water we want. The Egyptians couldn't do that. Oh my God, I thought to myself, this is not working. These people need a revolution. I come home, and 2 weeks later there was, I come home, airport, I'm thirsty, I go and have all the water I want out of a water fountain. And you think, that's privilege. That's potable water. And it's like, oh, well, our country, we're not Egypt. Flint, Michigan, they can't drink the water. The social contract is broken down. One other story. And actually, you can all do this on Google Maps when you get home tonight. I spent a little bit of time in Detroit, once again for a union conference. And we met a local there. He was a very cool guy. We met him at an Ace Frehley concert.
Who's from Yonkers, by the way.
All right.
Gotta get
Space
the
Ace.
here.
And very cool guy. We went driving around Detroit with him for a few hours. And he took us to the nice part where Mayor Bing lives. And then he took us to some nice parts, which were in many ways worse than Cairo before the revolution. We were driving along, I think it was called Jefferson Boulevard, which is their Fifth Avenue, their main drag, and it was nothing but destruction all around us. And then we see coming up ahead of us, it's green and verdant and beautiful. It was like in The Wizard of Oz, when you go from black and white to Technicolor. And we were like, oh my God, what is that? And we crossed the line into the next town up, into the Grosse Pointes. And it was very, very, very wealthy and very, very, very beautiful. And I couldn't help thinking, oh my God, how is it that people on this side of the line are not on that side of the line, with pitchforks? So, privilege.
Question?
I guess one thing that I was thinking about as I was watching the movie is that all through history there's been economic displacement. So, we invent the car and the guys who were blacksmiths lose their position. And so we saw that in the fishing industry, we saw it in Detroit. I think what's so devastating about it is that you know, that's exactly the moment you need the social safety net to work. And unlike a lot of Western
May I have your
nations,
attention, please? The library will be closing in a half hour. Please note
Sorry
the
to
computers will be shutting down in about 15 minutes. Please save all your work.
I think if we see in a lot of Western nations, not this one, there's a stronger social safety net. For instance, loss of a job in this country often results in the loss of your health insurance. And that's not true in, you know, most of Europe and much of the other parts of the world. So it takes a very bad situation and turns it into a catastrophe. And I think that we don't, you know, we don't have this safety net to hold people while we retool, rethink, retrain, and get them re-engaged in the workforce. And so these downward spirals begin. The gentleman who was making $90,000 a year had a job layoff at the beginning of the housing crisis, and lost a home that he'd been in for 18 years. When you think about the amount of equity he had in that home, he was more than halfway through paying off his mortgage. And, you know, we all know how unreasonable the banks were during those periods, doing modifications with people. We worked in partnership with a lot of our local agencies who tried to do modifications. But the amount of wealth that just evaporated in the housing crisis because there weren't any of these social programs, or to your point, Karen, that none of them worked well enough or fast enough to stop the crisis from happening.
You know, it's so interesting to see how the programs just don't align. They don't work with each other. What's also shocking is that, you know, there was a good stretch where I was doing all the human resources for Grayston Bakery. And our employees are low-income workers. For most people, this is their first legal job. We have open hiring.
I'm not sure everybody knows what Grayston Bakery is. Could
So-
you use a thumbnail of that?
Sure. So Grayston Bakery is one of the first social enterprises in the country. It is a commercial manufacturing facility, and we started something, and we practice it called open hiring, where, and I could go on about this for hours, so I'm really giving you the detailed version. If you're interested, come to the website or call me. You come in, you put your name on a list, and when we have a job available, you can have it. That simple. No questions asked. Right? Our biggest customer is Ben & Jerry's. If you've ever had chocolate fudge brownie ice cream or half-baked, which is their #1 flavor, you've had Grayston brownies. Our employees make 35,000 pounds of brownies a day just for Ben & Jerry's. And then we have a line in Whole Foods. So this is a successful business. Our top line at the bakery last year was $18 million in revenue, which is fantastic. We hire people. All of the product is created by people that other people wouldn't hire. And who are actively excluding. And that's what I was speaking to before about actively excluding people. Now, we're manufacturing. We're going to have to, there are certain, let's just say there's a candidate who I'm hoping will be online to put his name on the list on November 9th, because he won't have a job, and is going to need one. But we will hire anybody at that point, because we have to teach you how to do what we do. You can't possibly come in knowing how to run our production line. So, it doesn't matter. So you may say, I have an accounting office. I could never do that. Yes, you could. There is a way to look at it. You could say, I'm going to take an education requirement out of my job listing. My advertisement is no longer going to say you need an MBA. It's going to need to say you need to do accounts payable, receivable, I need a balance sheet at the end of the month, and I need my cash flow. That's what you really need somebody to do. By saying you want an MBA, one, you're making a character judgment. And you don't mean to. Most people don't do this to be mean, or because they want to. They're actively doing this. You have significantly reduced the number of people of color who are even going to apply, and the number of women who are going to apply, because there's smaller groups that have MBAs. So you've just now, through no intention and through a habit that is commonplace, all over. When was the last time anybody here saw a job listing in the paper that didn't have some sort of education requirement on it? I can't think of it. I also have never been able to come up with a job that you actually need to have a high school diploma for. You need to know, you may need to know how to read, you may need to know how to add, but you can do that without actually having a high school diploma. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't. That's how you develop and grow as a person. That's how you get good at what you're doing. But it's not a requirement, and it's not really necessary all the time. And that's a step that everybody in this room can take and the next time they have to hire somebody to change that. And I see, you can't get this, I talk to you. I get really excited about this.
Karen and I did a radio show on Monday,
Yeah.
so I've gotten to hear some of this, and it is really exciting. And one of the things that, the points that she was making is the practice of open hiring and a lot of the social service components that the Grayston Foundation has to support the Grayston Bakery, which is the for-profit piece of this, is replicable in other communities. And that's the point that, that I think is really a good takeaway for anybody, is the concept of open hiring. Your job description for somebody to work in a bakery is they have to be strong enough to lift a bag of flour, not that they need to have high school education. So being specific, if you need to be able to stand for 8 hours, you need to be able to stand for 8 hours. But we are really, we could just talk about this all night. There are so many pieces to discuss. I want to open it up. Does anybody have one last? All right, there we go. You're it. And then we're going to let the panelists give us the final thoughts.
Cool. So I just wanted to go back to your open job
Open
application, open hiring.
Open hiring.
I love that because going out, even having a college bachelor's degree that I have, all the jobs want you to have 3 years internship experience, which you have to wind up paying for yourself eventually too. So that even makes it harder, because how are you supposed to afford to pay for your full-time internship job? And my question I would want to say is, how do you even respond to that? Because like it makes you feel bad being people my age still having to live at home, because we can't afford to move out because we need to gain that further experience. Because even if you have the bachelor's degree, the master's degree even, they still want the 3 to 5 years experience in the relevant field for the assistant.
Everybody seems to want bigger, better, faster, louder, which is human nature. I can understand that. But you're right, at some point you have to say somebody has to start. And you have to say, I need somebody who's going to do the crap work. I mean, realistically. You're not going to get paid, you're not going to get somebody with an MBA and 3 to 5 years experience who will take your salary of $40,000 a year and do crap work. And if you do get that person, that is not the person you want. You want the person who, but realistically, that's the person who has chosen to have, extended themselves, gotten this MBA, or whatever it happens to be. I mean, that's an easy example to use.